Welcome back to The Hill's live coverage of the DNC of Kamala Harris's speech, which we just heard. I'm Robby Soave, host of Rising, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jessica Burbank. So let's get into it. I think Kamala Harris did a smart thing by not talking way too long. We've all been up way too late these last several nights, and the criticism of Donald Trump at the RNC was that it went on and on and on forever. So smart to be brief. And look, I will admit that while I'm not a fan of her or her policies, I think she did an effective job. In the past, where she's really struggled in terms of speaking is off the cuff answering questions. She tends to talk in these kind of vague, almost philosophical statements that have gotten mocked. This was just reading a speech from the teleprompter, which is not so difficult, but she did it well. She brought enough energy to it. It was mostly, autobiographical, which makes sense because not everyone knows who she is. They know she's the vice president, but she didn't have to run a campaign to get here. She was picked, as we've said in the last several weeks, to be the Democratic nominee. So I feel like it was a reintroduction that I can see playing well with independent and undecided voters.
Right. She opened the speech thanking her husband, Doug. It's their anniversary today. Someone said he is the epitome of wife guys. Can you imagine your wife wishing you an anniversary as she accepts the nomination for president? She then, like an AIM profile, I don't know if you had this technology, but
yes, I had an AIM profile.
Okay.
Jessica Burbank.
Did you in middle school
complete with Good Charlotte and My Chemical Romance lyrics as my away message?
Music and quotes. Okay, but we did a horrible thing.
Millennial. Go ahead.
We ranked our friends like, oh, so-and-so is my best friend, and then I will mention Natalie, and then
you don't even know
Daisy.
what a MySpace top 8 is. We had that, but
she basically did that.
Anyway,
because she's like, thank you to my husband, thank you to Joe Biden, thank you to Jill Biden, then the delegates, and then her supporters. And so it felt like that, like a ranking in an AIM profile. But I think she did a good job telling her personal story. She talked about how her mom was going to get an arranged marriage, and then in an act of self-determination, married this guy she met at a civil rights rally. She talked about her career as a prosecutor as being inspired by her friend Wanda, who was being abused by her stepfather, which is a weird theme at the DNC this time around, people being abused by their stepfather. Two prominent stories on that, but a horrible thing inspired her to be a prosecutor. And then she said that she always charged her crimes not in the victim's name, but for the people, because all of these crimes are crimes against the people. And when one of us is hurt, we're all hurt by crimes in our society. And then she says her only client ever has been the people, and Donald Trump's only client ever has been himself, which is good writing in this speech.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all of a sudden it's popular and good to be a cop again. I thought Democrats have been running against cops and against billionaires, but then except for the ones that get on stage at the DNC, those are the good guys, Kamala Harris and J.B. Pritzker, not anyone else. But, like I said, I think it was a good speech. I mean, it was set up to be a good speech. This whole thing is a pep rally. It was very light on substance, which is not surprising to me. I was actually, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Of course, the very much boosting the Democratic ticket people on, for instance, CNN said that, I couldn't believe how much substance there was in it. No, there was not a lot of substance. It was mostly autobiographical, which makes sense because she has to explain who she is to the people watching, to the millions watching, and I think she did a good job of that. And look, I think this is a very close race. The Democrats are fired up. She's fighting for it. They are energized. She made her pitch. Obviously, she can't run on, because this is not the way people think, she can't run on so much the successes of the administration, because the mood of the country is dissatisfaction with the administration on so many initiatives, so many policies that she was a part of, economy, immigration, et cetera. So she's not, touting the successes. She's saying, can you stomach the idea of Donald Trump being president again for 4 years? And that might end up being a successful pitch. But I wanted to ask you specifically what you thought about her statements on Israel and Gaza, which came up. There was a little bit of substance there. Obviously, some on the progressive left have been hoping or expecting her to make a little bit of a more forceful break from the administration from Biden on those policies. Biden is so unpopular with progressives in terms of the Israel issue. But what I heard was mostly the same things that he's been saying and doing. What was your take?
Yeah, I will say I did think it was substantive. She talked about not cutting Social Security and Medicare. She talked about codifying Roe. She talked about the goal of her presidency being fighting for a strong middle class, passing the bipartisan border bill. And I do think establishing who she is as a person in itself is substantive. People care about someone's personal story and their perspective. She also talked about her track record and what she got done as a prosecutor. And so did Roy Cooper before that, talked about how she had a $4 billion case with the banks, suing the big Wall Street banks for fraud.
She had a job in between being a prosecutor and now that she didn't talk about as much. But go ahead.
That turned into a $20 billion deal. So it was a substantive speech. What she said on Israel and Gaza, I think she did what mainstream media has been criticized for doing. And that is to use language that is passive when talking about Palestine, to say what has happened in Gaza, and to say the lives we've lost in Gaza. But when she talks about Israel, she talked about actions of sexual misconduct by Hamas. She talked about killing by Hamas. But when she's talking about Palestine, it's the same thing mainstream media does. The lives were lost. No, American-made weapons were sent to Israel and they were used to kill innocent women and children. And there's on-video sexual misconduct there that was not mentioned. And so while it's great, she says she believes Palestine deserves a right to self-determination. We've heard that in State Department briefings before. So it's not a diverse.
Exactly. Very much doubted that Kamala Harris would be at all different from Joe Biden on foreign policy and on that issue in particular. I think it was just hopes and vibes trying to manifest that progressive people were trying to do, that it was going to be different. So I was not at all surprised that it was exactly in line, again, with the policy she's been a part of, because she is the sitting vice president. She has co-signed, has been a part of all the policies that have been taking place for the last year. And so and how can she make that pitch to the American people when they're so dissatisfied with them? She really can't, but she can make the pitch that, look, I'm running against Donald Trump, and he is a very unpopular person, and she's making the case that I'm for America. There was a lot of patriotism tonight, a lot of rah-rah. Actually, Democrats are the party of patriotism, which, you know, make whatever you will of it. It probably, again, plays well. We're talking about thousands of voters in the swing states and winning them over to the Democratic ticket or the Republican ticket. They might have appreciated that kind of stuff. So I think overall, both conventions really were highly, highly effective spectacles for the respective candidates. And this is going to be an extremely close election that anyone could win. We were just a little disappointed, of course, that there was no special guest
Beyonce
appearance, no Taylor Swift, no.
We were told there was going to be something
there was
or
Pink
someone.
and the Dixie
George
Chicks.
W. Bush,
the Chicks.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, George Bush. Someone thought it was going to be George Bush.
Yes, George W. Bush's office. W had to put out a statement that it was not him.
Yes.
Beyonce
all the
did.
Former
Mitt
Republicans.
Romney said
yeah,
it's not me.
I saw his statement. Har har.
So I don't know what happened. Who was it? Who started the rumor? I'm writing in special guest for president come on November.
In some ways, Kamala Harris is herself the special guest, as she was not scheduled to be the candidate, the nominee, until very, very, very recently.
You
but
guys
look,
aren't going to believe it. We're nominating the vice president tonight.
As much as I have criticized the decision by Democratic Party insiders, elites, and the donor class to suddenly and dramatically, push the incumbent president off the ledge and substitute Kamala Harris in terms of Democratic norms and all that, it is pretty clear so far that it's been a successful political gambit in terms of dramatically improving the Democrats' chances of retaining control of the White House. And we shall see. Now all eyes turns to whatever debates are going to take place. We know there's going to be at least the one debate between Kamala and Trump, maybe more, and a debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz that will be extremely interesting. And we will look out for those.
Yeah, this was, Kamala Harris's defining moment. I think she did a good job. I think she demonstrated well that she will be different from Joe Biden because of who she is. Joe Biden is someone who was not always pro-abortion, was not always pro-gay rights. Kamala Harris always was. And
he was
fighting
for pro-gay rights for longer than Barack Obama was, interestingly enough.
But still, not as long as Kamala Harris was, and the way he supported busing and segregation policies. And what we're voting for in a president is a decision maker. And Kamala Harris has proven through her track record that she's made different decisions and will make different decisions, ones that are closer to protecting civil liberties among working people and protecting working people's interests in the economy. And so I think we can be very hopeful that Kamala Harris is going to be different than Joe Biden on all of those things, but I don't think people who care deeply about Palestine and Palestinian freedom are convinced that she is going to change course there.
Yeah, I think they are right to be unconvinced. I would argue that I'd be unconvinced there's going to be a lot of change on all those other things, although you're right that she is certainly she's of a different generation and has at points in her career been of a different philosophy and, more progressive in many ways, although, how sincere that is and what her actual commitments are, I have a bit of a question about, but we will certainly hear more about her policies when she does battle with Donald Trump. Thanks for watching The Hill's special coverage of the Democratic National Convention. We will be back tomorrow morning for the regular episode of Rising on Fridays. You won't want to miss that. Stay tuned.